So that was incredible. And I am so thrilled to announce the next keynote fireside of our day. It's the second to last, but definitely not the least. Both of these women are powerhouses, girl bosses. I admire them so much for different reasons. Essence Gans of BuzzFeed, the beauty director, as well as Nikki Reed, who you probably have seen on the big screen, but she also is the founder of an incredible sustainable brand called Bayou With Love. And I just want to welcome both of you here today. And I really, again, I can't thank you enough. This is all such a labor of love for Fashinnovation, and the fact that you guys are on here supporting and speaking and inspiring thousands of people right now during this pandemic means the world. So thank you, ladies. I will let you get started.
Thank
Hello.
you much. Hi, Nikki. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you? Wait, hold on. I just want to make sure I can see everything right. I'm going to press. There we go. Okay. Sorry, this is all very new for so I want to make sure I can
Parties.
see
Like,
you
I
on the
thought this is how we would be having panels, but thank God for technology, which we'll be talking a little bit about today, actually. So I have to tell you, which we talked a little bit backstage. For those of you who don't know, there's like a backstage to this. It's really fancy. And I was letting you know I was admiring your jewelry earlier today. I was just having a look on Instagram and it is absolutely beautiful. Um, of course. So I want to know just really quickly for those who don't know, just tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to, create this brand.
Okay. Well, I tend to be kind of long-winded, so feel free to just cut me off if at any point I'm boring you. So I started the company. I was dreaming up the company a couple of years ago when I was pregnant because I started looking for things in the marketplace that I just couldn't find, that I only sort of uh, became interested in, or more interested in, once I was on this motherhood journey. So like weird things you Google, like organic underwear, or like chemical free, maxi pads, or like what are the things that you start looking for when you realize that you're like growing another, like what kind of deodorant am I wearing? What am I putting on my skin? What am I putting on my body? Because I've been really conscious of what I put in my body. I think the world has now been sort of reintroduced and fallen back in love with organic food, pesticide free, chemical free. All those words are really familiar when we talk about what we're putting in our bodies, and less familiar when we talk about what we're putting on our bodies. So that was how Bayou kind of came about initially. And then shortly after launching, so we launched with apparel and apothecary. Shortly after launching, I received a phone call from Dell, tech company Dell, and they said something to the effect of like, hey, we feel, you're kind of a voice in the sustainable arena, and we'd love to talk about collaborating. And we've discovered that there's gold in the motherboards of our recycled technology. And Michael Dell, who's actually really a leader in sustainability and the company as a whole, and that's something that not a lot of people know, he was really spearheading this. And they've had sustainable initiatives as part of their supply chain for many, many years, long before this became trendy. But trends are not necessarily a bad thing. Trends can be a really good thing. And so that conversation very quickly led to, if you know me, you know I work fast. So this was not like years in the making. This is just a couple of months of sort of dreaming up what to do with that phone call. And I said, I've always wanted to dive into jewelry. In fact, I come from a family of jewelry designers, and I launched my first jewelry collection almost 10 years ago now, but it was short-lived, and I wasn't really sort of fully developed in my art and vision and approach to it. But needless to say, it wasn't my first dance with jewelry. And so I said, I think this is a really great opportunity for us to take sustainability and put it into a product that's beautiful, get it into the hands of consumers who normally feel sort of afraid to take that leap when it comes to sustainable products. Because as someone who has been championing sustainability for a really long time, I have felt sort of the pushback from people going, I don't want to spend my hard-earned money on things that, I can't, they're afraid of compromising quality. And I get that. I understand that concern and that fear. And the beauty of working with gold is that gold is gold, no matter where it comes from. So it's an area for people to feel sort of safe in taking that first leap, trying something new, purchasing something that's recycled, but knowing that they're getting the quality that they can expect. And hopefully that kind of opens the door for more opportunities to kind of purchase in a more conscious way. So that's how that's the condensed version of start to finish how this came about.
And you touched on a point that I wanted to actually ask you about, because that is a conversation now. I think more and more brands are becoming more conscious. So whether that's jewelry, apparel, and we'll see like, vegan leather and faux fur and like gold plated jewelry. So how do you, for someone who does have that question of like, okay, well, what makes this luxury versus not luxury? How do you justify the price point if this is not quote unquote real? What is the, how do you justify the price point for luxury items that are sustainable?
Oh, that question has a couple of different avenues we can take. So first of all, where to start with this? So consumer demand, consumer awareness leads to consumer demand. And the reason why there are many reasons, but one of the reasons why there tends to be a bigger price tag, a higher price tag on sustainable products is because, people aren't aware that when you purchase fast fashion, when you purchase things that are cheap, and I understand that for a lot of people that is the option, that's the only option. So this is not a criticism of that route. This is just simply kind of
the facts,
having a conversation about the facts. Yeah, when you purchase cheap products, it's because it comes with cheap labor. Mm-hmm. And cheap labor is a price you're paying. It's just a different price. You're mm-hmm. paying a price with people's lives and time and health and the health of our planet. And, products that aren't sustainable, that are, dyed with chemicals, and the environmental consequence is also a price that we pay. Mm-hmm. So I think what it really comes down to is, I also just want to say activism does not require a credit card. So while we sit here and talk about purchasing products to make a difference in this world, I mean that in addition to the things that we can do on a daily basis that don't require a credit card. I'm the first person to say that you do vote with your dollar, because we do. I mean, we're a world that will continue to need things, right? We need things. And by that, I don't even mean like needing a new dress. No, we also just need basic necessities, and those necessities rely on big business to make those changes in their infrastructure too. And the only way that happens is with consumer demand, and consumer demand comes from consumer awareness. So the more we continue this conversation, like one begets the other. It's cyclical, so it's all connected. So anyway, just to answer that first bit of that question on price tags and sustainability and why we're paying that price. And also the hope is that when that becomes the norm and more people want that, mass consumerism like that on a global scale will sort of increase the ability for other brands to create sustainable products in a more price friendly way. So that's that section of this. And then the next section, which is purchasing things that are conscious, but faux, like faux leather, faux. So that's like a whole world in and of itself. I mean, I try to look at everything that I'm purchasing sort of as like with interconnection between all areas. So for me, I like eating plant-based. I think that that's a wonderful way to, reducing your red meat consumption, I think is a wonderful way to be conscious of our planet. But that does not mean that we get to go to the market and buy 99 tubs of plastic nuts and plastic. The marketplace tends to capitalize on trends. And now that being vegan or plant-based is more of a trend, which, like I said before, trends can be wonderful. Now that that's becoming more popular, the marketplace takes advantage of that. So now suddenly, in order to be a vegan or be a plant-based eater, you have to have everything in packets, and they're going to give you everything in powder form and everything in. And I think that the approach really with conscious consumerism all around is making sure that if we're conscious in one area, we can be conscious in another area as well. So, you know, buying a bunch of faux leather, to me personally, while I understand the wonderful alternatives that that presents us with, so we're not out there slaughtering animals, I also would argue that the better approach is to buy recycled and buy leather that's already been used and keep it from going into landfills, and actually just purchase things that have already been created. The harm has already been done, but now we're not allowing it to just fill up our planet. um, so it's an interesting conversation when we talk about, you know, fashion and innovation. And, you know, I'm sitting here, you work for, you know, a major company that talks about consumerism all day long and promotes consumerism. I have a company that obviously relies on consumerism, and, you know, I'm a retail business, I'm a direct to consumer retail business, but I am still here creating products. And so I think it's important for business owners to acknowledge as well that the goal here is to create products that people will keep for a lifetime. That, you know, it's about quality, not quantity. So I'm not here every day going like, buy this and buy 10 of these and buy 20 of these, and if you don't like this today, buy something new, you know, buy a new piece tomorrow. That's not the point of the conversation. It should be about conscious decisions with what we're purchasing, because people will always want to purchase stuff. So we should create things that are better for the planet, but not with a high turnover rate, and not to fill our landfills. You know, part of our website very soon is going to be actually devoted to a whole vintage section that's like, hey, if you don't want to purchase new things, and we're all for that, let me try to highlight some used and recycled and upcycled products to show you the beauty in that as well.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about being a woman, owning your own business and entrepreneurship, because it's something that I think about a lot. Just, you know, speaking of trendy, and trends can be good, but speaking of trendy, like, you know, we're hearing all of this conversation lately around, like, you know, the wage gap, and we're just able, we're freer to have certain conversations that we should have been able to have a long time ago. But when I think about the conversation around like wage gap, and, you know, that's often centered around like a gender gap, but we often kind of neglect the conversation within women. So like white women versus women of color, cis women versus, you know, trans women. Like there are all these gaps because like women are not a monolith. We come in all these different cultures, backgrounds, you know, gender identities. And so I want to know from you, how do you think that we can start to close the gap amongst ourselves when it comes to economic opportunity, when it comes to even just the opportunities that we're given to even start businesses. It's harder for a woman of color to get a business loan than it is white women. The safety of trans women, you know, is at a higher risk than the safety, you know, of women like myself. So like, what are ways that we as women can start to ally for each other and the different women within our own group, so that we have more opportunities equally, you know, and economically?
It's a beautiful question. And I love the way that you presented that question. I don't think that there's any single answer to that question. But I think what you've done, which is so wonderful, is you've ignited a conversation around that question. And I think my short answer, which this topic alone could be the entire stream.
It's a book.
But I think it's a book, yeah. I think my short answer would be, we live in a time right now where we're able to kind of expose, highlight, celebrate, cross-pollinate, merge in ways we've never been able to do before. And I think the only way that we grow is by opening the door for each other. And so as women, I think it's really important. I don't think that we need to rely on men to do that. I think that, I mean, you know, I'm a self-made woman, so maybe that's just my mentality because, you know, I grew up poor. I live, you know, I lived with just my mom and my brother, and my mom made $16,000 or $17,000 a year in Los Angeles, raising two kids on her own. I love my dad, and we're super close and everything now. But the truth is, it would be a shame to not tell the real story about how hard my mom worked on her own as a single mom. And I watched my mom do it. She did it all, you know, she wore every hat, and she's the strongest woman I know. And I worked my ass off. I don't know what words we could say. I worked my butt off to also have every opportunity that I've had, because I've kind of like not just gently knocked, but like kicked down every door. It's just my personality, you know. It's not that I want to bulldoze, but I definitely don't like hitting roadblocks, and I find a way around and navigate around. And so I think when you know, when I hear about, talk about and see, you know, opportunities and or the lack of opportunities around for women, I feel like it's my role and duty to figure out how to merge and cross pollinate in that way. So like even with Bayou, when people ask me what my goal is for the company, my goal is to create a platform where all of the women that I know and beyond have the opportunity to use whatever platform I have for their own use and purposes. So I don't just sell Bayou on our website. I have curated a number of wonderful female-founded companies, and my platform, my social media, my Facebook pages, everything belongs to all the women that I know that I believe deserve to be celebrated. In fact, most of the time, I'm more comfortable taking a back seat and more comfortable highlighting their work. And I think that it's really important for women to continue to do that for other women, no matter who you are and what your, you know, socioeconomic background is, or, you know, what your story is. If you have the right intention, I believe that good things follow. And I think that women need to support other women in that way.
Absolutely. You spoke about like discipline, and the story about your mother is so beautiful, and you know that you had a living example. I want to know from you. I was actually on Twitter yesterday, and there was a tweet from, I want to make sure I get her name right. Her name is Maddie James, and she is an influencer, also a podcast host. But she was talking about, you know, her own journey and how motivation is necessary because that's what inspires you and it's exciting. But you know, motivation can run out. Like when, you know, you're not getting a yes, like, you know, it's easy for that motivation to kind of dwindle. But what will trump motivation is discipline. And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. And I was like, that's, you know, it was just so insightful for myself. And so for you, as someone who's built this amazing brand, what is one piece of advice around discipline that you would have for other women entrepreneurs, maybe existing or aspiring, like something that you maybe applied to your own journey in the very beginning when it's like super tough and it's just an idea? So I see you laughing. I feel like your wheels are already turning. So give us all the tea.
I mean, oh, discipline, the conversation of discipline. Well, I'm naturally a very disciplined person just because my brain, I have a lot of structure in my brain. So, but I also know what it's like to lose sight of that. So I think my greatest tip for that would be finding what gives you joy, you know, what brings you joy. And funny enough, that tends to be kind of a controversial topic because I understand that it brings up a lot in people because, you know, sometimes we don't have the ability in life, you know, with work, you know, I have more than one job. I can't yet afford to pay myself from my company. That's called being an entrepreneur. I reinvest everything back into not just the company, but I want to make sure that all the girls on the team get paid. So in order to make that happen, I work 2 other jobs. And I know what it's like to feel like there's no time to just do things that bring you joy. I get it. But I also have found what those little moments are. Like for me, it's writing. So if I feel like I'm losing motivation, I make sure that I wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock and take an hour to myself to write, because that writing, that sort of like disciplined act of writing, brings me joy, and then I feel motivated again.
Mm.
So finding the thing, whether it's taking walks on your own, or like being able to take that yoga class, or like listen to that podcast, or do that thing, you have to do little things when you can, that bring you joy, because that joy motivates you. We feel inspired when we feel joy.
Yeah. We have about, I think, 10 minutes left, and I want to be able to ask a few questions from the audience. But before that, just one question around like the merging of fashion and tech. Tech is just opening up, and we're learning about all these different opportunities. When I was growing up, tech was painted as this like thing that was like only for dudes. You had to be like this math and science whiz. And then I grew up and I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these other cool jobs in tech that I could have probably pursued and made way more money. But what advice would you give girls now? And maybe even if there are like no younger girls who are tuned in, I'm not sure the age range, but even for like parents or teachers or people who interact with young girls, what advice would you give them about how to have conversations with young girls and encourage them to penetrate that tech space and to just open their, their interest in pursuing it as a job?
I love this question. I worked with Google last year and directed a short film for them on how to encourage young women to enter STEM fields, because exactly what you just said, this has been science, tech, engineering, and math has been associated with, it's a male dominated field, industry, all of those are. And there's no proof that says men are smarter, that women have the power to create. They're just as intelligent. They are, innovators. So there's no reason for that not to be a balanced field. So I think I would say, first of all, you said, are there any young women watching? I believe you can reinvent yourself at any age. So I don't think that you need to be a young girl to feel like, now's your time to do that. If you feel called to any of those things, including you, you should. You should. You
Yeah.
should definitely take a moment to reinvent your life or study something new that you feel passionate about. And, I could be wrong, but it sounds like right now is a really great time to do that, actually, because there's a lot of information on the computer, and that's what most of us are doing. So that is one thing. And number two, I would say for the young girls, it's our responsibility right now. It's by us, I mean it's the older generation. It's our responsibility to be examples for those young girls, because you only want to become what you have seen. You only dream about doing things that you idolize in other women. Like girls are not, they don't want to walk on the moon until they've seen a million women walk on the moon. They don't want to become doctors until we show that doctors are heroes and that they're women. So I think we need to create those opportunities for young girls to see that and want to be that, and encourage that. So all of us and parents as well. I think it's a really beautiful message to send to young girls.
An audience member wants to know what ways that you are pivoting or how you're adapting to the current climate, because we are in a pandemic. So how are you adjusting your business model, and what are your thoughts on sustainability after this pandemic blows over? Because as we know, this will probably change a lot of things forever. So what are your thoughts on that, or how are you adjusting or trying to adjust?
This pandemic has certainly taken all of us by surprise, and shifted a lot. But one thing about being a direct-to-consumer company, and also a sustainable company that focuses on producing locally, is that my factory is still 20 minutes away from me. So even though obviously everything is closed at the moment, the second everything opens back up again, I can just drive to where I'm going. I'm not worried about shipping, and I think that not too much, except for, of course, lack of sales, which is normal for everybody right now. Not too much has changed within the structure of the company, which is great. And luckily, because our overhead is super low, because I want to remain a small business, but that's a topic for another time. Because our overhead is low, I am able to make cuts in some areas that don't affect our team members too much right now. And that was really important for me, is making sure that the wonderful group of ladies that we work with at the company are still taken care of. And how does this affect sustainability as a whole? I think my hope is that people will see the beauty in regeneration. It's only been a short period of time, and we've watched how quickly the earth can bounce back. And I think my fear, not that I want to lead with fear, but I think my fear is that people will say, oh, well, if the earth bounces back so quickly, then we can just go back to living how we were, because it doesn't really matter, since now we know that like within a month everything gets better. That's my fear. And my hope is that instead of that, people start craving the beauty that we've seen come back so quickly, on an even larger scale, and they feel inspired and motivated to continue on a path that's just a more conscious path overall. And businesses, this sounds probably overly optimistic, but there are a lot of big business owners and CEOs sitting at home right now with maybe not more time on their hands, because everybody's still working the same, but less movement. And when you're not moving around as much, and you have the opportunity to sit still, even if you're still sitting still working in front of your computer, I think there's a lot of reflection that's taking place everywhere right now. And that kind of reflection hopefully will inspire changes within the infrastructure of some of these large companies, getting creative, what I hear from a lot of big companies that I reach out to and try to open up talks about sustainability with. What I hear is, you don't understand. If you remove one piece of it's like removing a piece of the Jenga puzzle. Like, we can't rebuild the entire company from scratch. I hear that a lot. And I always try to take the approach of like, incremental change deserves applause as well. And you can make small changes within your company, no matter how big that company is, without having to kind of level everything from the ground up. So my hope is that, some of these folks are sitting at home right now going, maybe this is where we should be putting our money, and maybe we should take a step back and look at the bigger picture and kind of get ahead of things instead of just treading water in terms of sustainability.
To close out, I'm going to combine two questions. This came in for both of us. So basically, two people wanted to know. One person said, I'm going to read it directly because I thought it was so cute. You both portray such a calm spirit and vibe. And so they want to know, what are some tips that we have for women who are in lockdown and sometimes get anxiety or just fearful? And someone else's very similar question was basically, how do you remain calm in times like this where it's very high stress? I can start by just saying I think it's something that happens with age as well, but like, I have just come to accept what cannot be changed. And right now, this situation, I feel like, has taught us all a lesson, and that it affects everybody. We've talked a lot about socioeconomic status and opportunity and privilege. And right now we're in a situation where it doesn't matter where you fall in any of those categories. You're all stuck at home. You can't travel. You can't go anywhere. You're all trying to get toilet paper from the grocery store. And so for me, I've just learned to this is the reality. So this is what it is. And I have to just maximize, you know, whatever the opportunity is in this reality. And that in a way keeps me calm, because it just makes you realize like you can panic, you can, you know, react, but it's still not changing. You still may not get toilet paper at the grocery store. If it's gone, it's gone. And that reality has just helped me to kind of like, you know, stay calm. And also, I'm just a very firm believer in prayer, meditation, whatever it is that you do to just have some stillness and to try to connect with something outside of yourself. And so those are kind of my two things. What about you?
That was also really beautiful. Just accepting what you cannot change. I definitely have some anxiety over this as well, so I can relate. I mean, maybe I look super calm right now, and I've made peace with a lot of what's happening right now. But of course, I'm a mom. I've seen how this has affected, an entire family structure and children, and so yeah, there's a lot right now, and I feel for everybody who is saying that they have anxiety, because I definitely do as well at times. I think I'm trying to find the beauty in this as well, because there's so much tragedy, and I also don't want to highlight the beauty so much that we're taking away from
Yeah.
the tragedy, because that tragedy is real, and people are losing, family members, jobs, lives. And I am sitting in a home, and I live on the West Coast, so I'm able to like go on walks, and I still see nature, and that I'm so grateful for. And I know that there are people who are, stuck in apartments in big cities where they can't go outside and have that. And so I feel for that too. So I want to talk about like the tragedy as much as I want to talk about the beauty in all of it. I will say that this is an opportunity for us to all get a little bit creative in how we're living our lives, the things that we're doing. We all have the chance to learn something new right now, see how that applies to our current working situation. And I also just want to say that, without diving into anything personal, because there's no need right now, this has affected my life and business as well. I don't think that anybody is immune to this situation right now. And so I think the greatest thing is, when you're feeling anxiety, find compassion. Find compassion for yourself, but find compassion for other people, because we don't know what somebody else is going through, just like they don't know what we're going through. So try to come from a place of compassion.
I love that. And I think that is a beautiful note to end on: compassion. Thank you so much for chatting with me and for sharing your experience with everyone watching.
I want to thank the both of you just before you sign off, because this was so great. I wish we could have like an hour or more of you guys speaking. I got so much from what you guys said, between the incremental changes and applaud for companies. I totally agree with you on that. To Essence, you bringing up topics in such a calm manner that allowed people to want to be a part of the conversation, which I think a lot of times the industry lacks. And also, how old are your kids? I just have to ask.
Me?
Yeah.
I have one. She's 2.5.
I have a 2 and a 3-year-old. So the dynamic. So I understand the dynamic of anxiety with that. And I just wanted to say, like, I appreciated your answer. And meditation, by the way, Essence, something I want to get into. I would love to talk to you guys forever, but this was so great. You guys just evoked so much hope, but also being very honest with what's going on. And I think that that's what the world needs right now. So I appreciate both of you so much. And I'm looking forward to further conversations, and stay safe. And thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys
so much. This is really wonderful. Thank you for doing what you're doing. This is great.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.